3 or 4 more games down the line, if we ain't starting to get a tune out of some of these players after all the money that was spent, I would seriously start looking at Moyes.
I'm going to go with William Saliba. He looks like he's got all the makings of a top centre half.
I know that's pun and all that sort of thing, but strike while the iron's hot.
How long have you been practicing that one for, Nicky?
I just thought of that. I mean, constantly through.
I think for me, someone who's going to be in a lot more danger and pretty soon than people maybe think is Nottingham Forest Steve Cooper.
I think Tottenham will be the one to push Man City for the title this season. I
was just starting to like you, Nicky.
Mate, listen, do you know how much that breaks my heart to say?
Newcastle came up against Liverpool and they're flattered to see, really, that they really didn't impress me.
Shocking is the word to describe this player after such a fantastic season last season. That's Jared Bowen.
In terms of best memories, it's got to be winning the league at White Hart Lane. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that.
Hi everybody, it's back. Welcome back to a brand new series of Fan Zone, the Premier League talk show by fans for fans. I'm back, Chris from the Gallagher Shot Newcastle United fan channel, and I am joined by a regular on here, Nicky from West Ham Fan TV. How are you doing, mate?
I'm good, mate. You?
I'm not bad. Looking forward to Newcastle United season, and I'm hoping all you are looking forward to your club's seasons as well. And we are joined by a new face on here. Harry is here from the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast. Welcome to the show, Harry.
Pleasure to be here. Pleasure to be here to talk football with you guys. And always nice to do it sitting at the top of the Premier League looking down at everyone else.
I'm sure we'll get onto that very soon, mate. So let's get straight into it, okay? Let's look back at the season so far. I know it started a couple of months ago there now, and a lot has happened already. But let's get straight down to it. And I'll come to you, Harry, first, as the new member of the team. We'll come straight to you. Which side has surprised you the most so far?
In a positive way, or, you know, I'm going to do it in a negative way, because I think I've been really, really surprised by Leicester City and how bad they've been. I know that people say that things have been unsettled there for a while, that the financial issues they've got were a big hindrance in the summer, and it meant that they couldn't go out and strengthen the squad. But I still look at that group of players. I still look at Brendan Rodgers and think that there needs to be more from them. You know, I don't think that it's a terrible squad. I don't think it's a squad that's worthy of being right at the bottom of the table. And I think Brendan Rodgers is someone who's had a lot of praise over the years and has to be held accountable to a degree as well for not being able to get a tune out of this group. Because I saw them live earlier in the season at Emirates Stadium, and whilst in short spells they look quite compact and quite organised, they just seem to switch off at various points in games. So I don't know if you were looking for a positive angle, but the team that has surprised me the most has been Leicester. I didn't think they'd be 5th, 6th or in that European conversation again, but I certainly didn't envisage them being right down at the bottom of the Premier League at this point.
Yeah, mate. I think I'm in agreement with you on that one. I think it's a shock, and I was surprised that they managed to keep a hold of two. Well, obviously Madison links out the club, Tielemans as well. I'm surprised that they managed to keep a lot of their star players. I know they did lose a player to Chelsea there, but I think you're probably bang on there, to be fair. Is there anybody that stands out for you, Nicky?
I've got 2, positive and negative. Well, a positive one for me has been Fulham. Fulham have come up, and to be fair, they've looked magnificent at times, you know, and even the games that they've lost by narrow margins, and they've always given a good account of themselves. I'll be honest, when they came up, over the last couple of times they've been up, I thought relegation for sure. I thought they was going to be the whipping boys. But yeah, they've really surprised me how well, and Mitrovic as well, because he was someone that we've been linked with, and I know that's someone that you've had on your books in the past. And I wasn't really too sure about him in a Premier League Championship striker. You know, he's a 50-goal season man, isn't he, at times? But Premier League, I didn't think he quite had the tools, and he's proven me wrong. So Fulham for positive. Negative, I've got to say West Ham. My boys, I think they've been absolutely shocking, to be quite honest with you. Like, I know that, you know, from the outside in, You can look at things like bedding in and whatnot, but obviously I go there week in, week out, and I've been to all the games this season, and there's been a distinct lack of communication, a distinct lack of leadership, and there's some really concerning performances from my boys. So I thought I always thought this was going to be a difficult season for us, but I didn't think we'd be in this position at this time of the season. I thought we'd have had at least another couple of wins under our belt. So yeah, there's a 2 from me.
Are you worried about that?
Sorry, mate. Go on.
Are you worried about the current position of West Ham? I know we're only 7 games in the season.
I'm not worried per se, because I think I've seen a couple of teams that are worse. I think Bournemouth are sure for the drop. I think Nottingham Forest, they've got a lot of learning to do in a short space of time with a big squad. So there's 2 there that I think will definitely be for the drop. But if we don't start backing up our ideas in the next 5-6 games, I've seen better teams than us go down. I've seen a better West Ham team than this one go down. So, yeah, it's it depends. It depends how we approach it. We're not a team that traditionally sacks managers, but 3 or 4 more games down the line, if we ain't starting to get a tune out of some of these players after all the money they've spent, I would seriously start looking at Moyes and seeing what's going wrong.
Sorry, Harry, what were you going to say before I interrupt you?
I was just going to say that I covered a couple of West Ham's pre-season games, and so when I saw them start the season the way they did, I wasn't massively surprised, because I didn't think they looked completely prepared. Now, part of that was down to injuries. I know it was a massive blow losing Aguerd, a top centre-half that you've paid big money for. That was a big, big blow. And then, of course, Ogbonna's fitness was in question coming back from a long injury. So I wasn't surprised at the slow start, but I do think now, West Ham do need to start turning it around and fast. And I can't really make sense of some of Moyes' decisions, in that he's brought in a few really decent players, Paqueta, Scamacca, and he seems reluctant even still to move away from what has worked for him in the last couple of years.
I think that's what's frustrating me. I know a few West Ham fans that have got a bit more patience than I have, but we got to a point last season. It's not just this season. It's, if you look at it, it's the tail end of last as well. By the end of it, this wasn't working because we'd been worked out. We had such a thin squad. We brought in reinforcements. We brought in fresh blood. We want to get these people playing in the Premier League, and he keeps them going with the same thing. Now, look, you have to be insane to do that. That's the definition of insanity. If you don't change what you're doing and expect different results, that's what being insane is. So he's got to have more faith. He's got to have a bit more balls, to be honest.
Yeah. I think you've both summed it up really well in relation to the situation at West Ham and the position which they find themselves in. I think it's currently that they are the lowest ranked London club in the Premier League at the moment, league position, which is at the start of the season that shocks me. The teams which I'm surprised at is what Fulham already been mentioned, and like you mentioned there, how well Mitrovic has done. As a Newcastle United fan and somebody who split the fan base directly down the middle when he was at our club, you either loved him or you hated him. Always known for being a bit of a loose cannon, a bit of a wild one. But I think that's the sort of character he is, and you don't ever want to take that away from Mitrovic. But he's been fantastic, and obviously Fulham playing to his strengths, and he's going to grab your goals every single day of the week for that. And the one which has shocked me, believe it or not, and I'm going to throw a wild card in there, is Liverpool. I thought Liverpool would have had a hell of a lot of a stronger start than what they have done. Newcastle came up against Liverpool and they flattered at sea, really. They really didn't impress me. Managed to go toe-to-toe, we did with them, up until we decided to have about 24 minutes added on time in that game. But we'll not get onto that. But yeah, those are the 2 shocks for me. But I think we've got a decent collection in there. So it's been an interesting start to the Premier League so far.
Yeah, it definitely has. Let's go on from that. On the same lines, which player from your club has surprised you the most this season? Let's go with you. Who should we go with? Let's go Kris, because Harry started last time.
Do you know what it is? I think because Newcastle had such a decent end to last season, it's hard for us to sit here and say somebody's surprises in a positive way, because I think the players that were there at the end of the season, the had an absolutely fantastic end to the season. They really did. Obviously managed to climb up the league, and I was hoping that we would see D this season as well, so I could have a bit of a dig at him as well, because I said Newcastle and Eddie Howe would be up there with Crystal Palace, which he didn't agree with. But players that are standing out, I would probably say Almiron. He's had a half decent start this season. It's probably helped that Jack Grealish had a little bit of a dig at him in after they won the Premier League. He had a bit of a dig at Almiron. If I want to be really harsh and look at it in a negative way, I'm going to say Fabian Shaw for Newcastle. He scored a great goal at the start of the season. He really did. But I think he's got an error in him, and I think with Sven Botman waiting in the shadows there to come straight into that Newcastle United team, I think the pressure might get on top of Fabian. So for me, it has to be Fabian Shaw. What about you, Harry?
I'm going to go with William Saliba, because he's come into the team from a loan spell at Marseille, where he was impressive. People were talking about him as somebody that was a real star for the future, but I couldn't have envisaged him coming into the side and just fitting in so seamlessly the way he has. He looks like he's been playing in the Premier League for years. He looks composed. He looks strong. He looks powerful. He looks like he's got all the makings of a top centre half. And I always knew, as I say, that he was a talented boy, but I don't think anybody saw him coming in and being so impactful so sort of straight away. Obviously, Ben White's been moved out to right back as a result of him coming into the side, and Ben White was superb last season. So it just goes to show what a difference he's made in such a short period of time. And, he's got a big future ahead of him. So I've been pleasantly surprised by William Saliba. What about you, Nicky?
Shocking is the word to describe this player after such a fantastic season last season. That's Jared Bowen. It's nothing, to be honest. Harry got in that England squad. I'll never know. I know why he hasn't played, because he's been absolutely awful. Looked come back, looked about stone overweight, and has done absolutely zilch in 7 games. And I'm a big fan of Jared Bowen, but he seems to, like, there was this spell when he came in from Hull where he was having these patches in his game where he wouldn't make the right decision, and he wouldn't make the right run, and he wouldn't make the, he didn't know when to pass, didn't know when to shoot. And it looks like he's reverting back to that, really, and he's come back pre-season. Some people in the West Ham fan base have said that they think he's got a bit above himself since he got in the England squad and played a couple of games for England. I don't think that's true. I just think he's gone away. It's the first, if I remember rightly, it's the first proper summer that he's had with his young family without COVID and all of that sort of thing. He's settling down. Maybe he just went away and enjoyed himself too much, and he just ain't got back into the swing of it yet. I don't know. I need him to, to start firing like he did before. But yeah, he shocked me the most this season, how poor he's been.
I think there's certain players that could probably get away with that as well, where they can go away in the summer and come back a bit more hefty than what the previously were. But you have to deliver on the pitch. If you've taken advantage of that all-inclusive breakfast, you have to start hitting the street to come back.
Absolutely. Guys, we've already seen some managerial changes this season, so I'm interested to know who you think will be the next to get the bullet in the Premier League, because it's a cutthroat world. I'll come to you first, Kris.
Hopefully, Frank Lampard. Honestly, I'm shocked that he's lasted this long. I thought he would have got the bullet towards the end of last season. I really did, because when Everton started to struggle. But I think it will be Lampard. I think Everton, they're the type of team where they'll probably get a couple of decent results. Then they'll go on one of those streaks where they don't pick up points for God knows how many weeks. And I think it will be Lampard. I'll be very shocked if it's not, if I'm being honest with you.
I'll disagree. I think Lampard's done okay. I think he's done okay with what he's got. And, they was absolutely shambolic last year. Mm-hmm. And he's done a lot in shoring up the depth. They're not a very good football team. That's the problem he's got. They're not a very good, ball playing team, and they can look shocking. But he's shored up the back. I think he'll do all right, Frank. I think he'll do all right. The one for me, who I'm surprised you didn't go with, Kris, is Rodgers. I'll be honest with you. I don't know how he's still there. The only reason I can think that they haven't sacked him is they can't afford to sack him.
That's what was my point. I don't think they physically got the money there, but how many times do we hear this in football where a club's skint, then a couple of weeks down the line, there's a huge payout for the manager?
Yeah. I think, if they've got the means to, it's Rodgers all day long. I think it's nailed on that he's going to go at some point, even if he walks, because I don't think he's getting the tune out of some players. He's been very restricted. He's lost a lot of influence in the dressing room. They might get to a point where they just come to a lot of mutual agreement. But I'll be very surprised if it ain't Rodgers, especially if they don't win in the next sort of 3 games. I think he will be out in his ear.
Did you not think that the interview with James Maddison was quite telling, though, that it seems like he's still got the dressing room? It doesn't seem like he's lost that yet. Maddison came out and he was shifting a lot of the blame onto the players. Yeah,
I mean, I don't know. Yeah, it was a different interview that you normally see when teams are in that position, because players like Maddison and players like that, they seem to be more inclined to shift it onto the manager and say, well, it's not us. It's they sort of imply that it's training methods or some sort of. But it was a very it's refreshing, really. But listen, Ranieri won the league there, and they shifted him out quick time when it started going wrong. I'm very surprised that he's still there, to be honest.
I think for me, someone who's going to be in a lot more danger and pretty soon than people maybe think is Nottingham Forest Steve Cooper. I've watched Marinakis, the Nottingham Forest owner. I'm from a Greek background, so I've watched him sort of the way he's run Olympiakos over the years. He's never been afraid to throw money at situations. He's never been afraid to bring players in, but he's been very quick to move managers out when things aren't working. And I know that common sense says that they've brought in so many players that it's going to take time for them to gel, and it's going to take time for him to sort of build that unit again after the amount of players that they lost as well over the summer. But I just don't think he's got the patience as an owner. And I think that he's someone that will look at that Premier League table if it still looks the same in a few weeks' time, and will probably press that panic button. So Steve Cooper, for me, came into the Premier League and everybody was talking about what a great coach he is. And I'm sure he is. But the circumstances have just been really difficult for him with all that change. And I cannot see him turning it around quick enough to keep Marinakis happy, who, as I say, has been renowned. I think he sacked an Olympiakos manager already this season. So, it doesn't take much for him. So I think Steve Cooper's in trouble.
It's a good shout, to be fair. And I want to come back to you, Nicky, and still sticking on the same subject. And I want to bring it a bit closer to home. Do you think, I know you said earlier in here that West Ham on renowned for sacking the managers without giving them a decent run at it. Would you be shocked if it was Moyes? If things don't improve quickly?
No. I think I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest with you, because we're in a bit of unprecedented position, because they've given them a lot of money, on the back of a couple of, in our successful seasons, European semi-final, 6th and 7th in the league. They're where we want to be. And if they've got any ambition, that's where they'll want to be. And, if you're giving them 180 million quid, I think they give him this summer, which is a lot of money for us. It's a hell of a lot of money. And he's not playing the players that you've just paid all that money for. They're going to be sitting there thinking, well, what do we give him all that money for him to do that and then to go down the pan? We can see it was going down the pan last year, and we've just given him 180 million quid and he's doing the same thing. It's just, it depends on the owner's mindset. The only thing that, I think one of the managers that we'd link with, who they're very good friends with, is Sean Dyche. I think if they was to sack Moyes and go with Dyche, I think it's not taking a step forward, it's taking a step back. But, I know I sound a little bit ungrateful, as to say, but, he's taken us a long way, Moyes, and it only takes one season to undo all the good work that you've done, in terms of getting to Europe twice and playing in Europe. And when you get towards the top with the teams that are around there, with the teams that are coming up, with the money that people have got, you know, you've only got a small, tiny window of opportunity to really, you know, seize it before someone's creeping up your arse. You know, Newcastle are going to be there in the next year or two, without a shadow of a doubt, if not this season. So, you know, to really sort of hit while the iron's hot. I know that's you know, pun and all that sort of thing, but strike while the iron's hot.
How long have you been practicing that one for, Nicky?
I just thought of that. I'm constantly through. But you know, if you want to strike while the iron's hot, and you know, get players in off the back of that success, get a manager, a manager that can see a project on the back of that success. I think it's now, because at the end of this season, you know, Rice is leaving. No shadow of a doubt, he's going, you know, and that's a big rebuild from now. If you get a little bit of ambition and you get a bigger name manager who can get a tune out of these players, good players, these players. Skamaka, he's a good player. Paqueta, he's a good player, you know. If you can get them to get a tune out of these players and attract more, you know, you might even convince Rice to stay for another year. But if we go down the pan, Rice is probably sitting there thinking, I should have gone this year now. I would, you know. What was the point? What was the point in staying? Because it's just exactly the same. And I think he's losing the dressing room a bit, in my opinion, because, you know, you've got all of these players coming in and you know, good players like Rice who, you know, do a lot of the bad work for West Ham and a lot of the dirty work. And they're thinking, like, we need someone expressive, we need someone creative, and then we need someone else to score the goals. They've got them players in and they don't play them. And they think, what's the point? What's the point in that then? What was the point in bringing them in if we're just going to do exactly the same things? I've got to play exactly the same way. My game isn't developing because of that. And I think honestly, I think he could be in a bit of danger. He's had the dreaded, you know, vote of confidence. So, you know, only time will tell, I guess. But he's got, I reckon he's got about 2-3 games.
Yeah, it's a strange one, and like I said, it's the Premier League started a handful of weeks ago now, and so much has happened already, and it'll continue to happen. I'll move over to you, Harry, and I know we've covered quite a few topics, especially controversial subjects, yeah. But do you have any more predictions for the remainder of the season? Anything controversial which you believe may happen?
Oh, that's an interesting one. In terms of things that you would say were probably a little bit left field, I actually think that Bournemouth might survive. I don't say that with an awful lot of confidence, but I think getting rid of Scott Parker's actually done them a massive favour. I think he's proven throughout that he's not been up to the level required. I thought when he was in charge of Fulham, I thought that tactically they were very naive. They struggled to impact games. I covered a few of their games at the time, and you just couldn't see where they were going to get wins from. I think coming up with Bournemouth, I think most managers, of that standard, sort of League One Championship level should be achieving that with the group that he had. And he managed to get them over the line just about and get them into the Premier League. And, they started the campaign really, really poorly, and he's been sacked. And ever since then, Bournemouth have turned a little bit of a corner. There's better organisation. There seems to be more unity, a bit more of a togetherness. There isn't this idea of trying to play this brand of football that you're just not cut out to play. I think they've gone back to basic. They've made themselves harder to beat. They're still not quite where they want to be. But I think that, I'm not saying it's definitely going to happen, but I wouldn't be surprised now that they've made that change. If they stick with Gary O'Neill at the moment, if he does get the job for the rest of the season, I'm not sure that he will. But I think they're on the up, at least for now. And so I can see a world where they do survive.
I agree with you there. So obviously, Bournemouth were the last club to come to St James's Park, and Newcastle found it very, very hard to break them down. I think a lot of fans went into that game thinking we're going to score 2, 3, 4 against these, but we were surprised about how well they were set up. It almost seemed as if Scott Parker was at the point where he wanted to get sacked. Some of the things he was coming out and saying in interviews, it's like, sack us now. Obviously, I'm not good enough. Just get rid of us. Anything else that you would like to add, Nicky? Anything controversial?
Controversial? I think Tottenham will be the one to push Man City for the title this season. I think it's Tottenham, not Arsenal, that will push that will push City the furthest. I don't think they'll win it, but I think they'll come close.
I was just starting to like you, Nicky.
Mate, listen, do you know how much that breaks my heart to say? It breaks my heart as much as it breaks your heart to listen to it. But I've said this since the beginning. I think they'll come the closest.
I personally don't think any of us will come anywhere near them. I still think that City are just so superior to everybody else. I think the only team that I looked at the start of the season and thought could get anywhere near them was Liverpool, and they've had a really bad start. And it's already a mountain to climb to finish above Manchester City. And, you know, with the advantage that City have at the moment, I know it's not irreparable, but I just think that, you know, the depth they've got and the addition of Erling Haaland, who can just pull goals out of his backside pretty much, it's an incredible signing. And I think it's going to be close between Spurs and Arsenal in terms of who finishes above who. But I can't see any of us getting within touching distance of Manchester City, unfortunately.
Sticking with controversial, Harry, and I'll stay with you, mate. And we've seen Potter go to Chelsea from Brighton. Brighton sitting in a decent position at the moment. Do you think that's going to be a good move for Potter? Just if we're sticking on with controversial, do you think who's going to finish in the stronger position, Brighton or Chelsea, by the end of the season?
I think Chelsea will finish above them. I think Chelsea have got much more depth, much more quality, much more know-how in that group, and I expect there to be a much higher level of consistency there. But I don't think the Chelsea job is the best fit for Graham Potter because of what we know of Chelsea in the past. You know, they're not traditionally very patient. Maybe this is a sign of things to come. Maybe the appointment of Graham Potter signifies that they're going in a different direction under new ownership. I know they pulled the trigger on Tuchel early, but he wasn't Bowley's man. So I wonder if you're going to see a bit of a change there. But I think from Graham Potter's point of view, I don't think he could have afforded to sit there and get caught up in this, should I not? I think if you're a manager with any ambition, especially Graham Potter, who's done it the hard way, right? He left the UK, went abroad, earned his stripes at some really unfashionable football clubs, and has come back, got the recognition for the job he's done at Brighton, and along comes the Chelsea job, an opportunity to play in the Champions League, to have a big budget. I think he would have been a fool, and I think it would have shown a lack of ambition on his own personal part if he said, no, I'm not taking that. So I think he had to take it. I think as long as he does a decent enough job, then I think his reputation will still be intact, whatever happens. But he's got to take that job. You have to. Is it the best fit? Probably not. But how can you turn down an opportunity like that as someone in Graham Potter's position?
I don't know whether this is a tough one, but you know, Potter's a fantastic manager. I would have taken Potter, you know, tomorrow if he was offered, you know, swap for like. I would have taken Potter. I think Potter's a fantastic manager, but I think what you see with like Lampard is that taking that big job and maybe saying no to Chelsea puts him in a better position in the future, because I still think there's big teams for him to manage, and like with Lampard, that job's poison chalice. They're not going to go and win the league. They're not. They're just not. You know, I don't think they'll win the league within the next 5 years. I don't think anyone will, but Man City, to be quite honest with you. I think the only people that have got a half decent chance of doing it is Newcastle in the next 5 years because of the money they've got. We're in a league now that is money orientated. I don't know what Chelsea are planning to do in the future. This is new, unprecedented sort of territory for them in the last 18, 19 years. But I don't think their ambition is to win the league. I think it's to make money. And I think that's a bit of a mistake from Potter going to Chelsea. I think he would have been a better fit for someone like Manchester United or you know, even Arsenal down the line. But Chelsea, no, because you know those clubs. Although you know you might laugh at Manchester United, they have traditionally got a patient board that will give them a little bit of time. You know, Solskjaer, he was a terrible manager, got a little bit of time. Chelsea will, you know, traditionally they would just, I don't know, they would just snap at the first opportunity and overreact. And you know, you see, I think their fans are impatient. He played one game in the Champions League and they're calling for him to go. I think it's madness at that club. I've never liked that club, to be honest with you. You know, they trade their morals, fans as well, trade their morals for trophies, and I don't think that's ways to run football clubs. Football clubs are meant to be hubs of communities and all that sort of thing, and there's nothing about that club that would interest me if I was a manager or a player, to be quite honest with you, apart from money.
Yeah, fair enough. Have you finished with your rant about Chelsea there, Nicky?
Yeah, I'm done when you're done. Let's go to the last one then. With the North London derby and Manchester derby this weekend, what is your favourite league derby memory for your clubs? I'll let you battle it out to see who goes first on this one.
I'll let you take this one, Harry, because I don't have many recent fond memories about derbies. So I'll let you take this one.
The North London derby is, I would say, is right up there now in terms of the Premier League derbies. Not because of any other reason outside of the fact that both the sides are pretty level and have been for a few years now. There's not been much to separate the two, which adds to the sort of, I think, the neutrals appeal to the game. It's always intriguing to see what's going to happen. From an Arsenal perspective, it's hard because growing up, it wasn't even an issue. Like Tottenham were just a noisy neighbour that we'd bat away with ease. And, we were focused on Manchester United and hunting them down and chasing them in the Premier League title race. So over the years, this is one that's become more, more important to me as time's gone on. But I think it's right up there. I don't really know that you can say that about the Merseyside derby. I think there's a massive gulf between the two clubs, and obviously on top of that, they sit with each other in the derby. What's that all about? I'm not being biased when I say I think that the North London derby is right up there now as one of the best. In terms of best memories, it's got to be winning the league at White Hart Lane. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. To watch them celebrate the way they did when they came back to 2-2, it was almost as though they'd forgotten that a draw was enough for us to win the league on their pitch, which was amazing. And Thierry Henry tells a great story where he was told going into that game that if Arsenal did win the league, not to celebrate because it would incite the crowd. But once Spurs celebrated the equaliser the way they did, he just abandoned that, and they all went nuts in the corner of the stadium. So that's probably my best memory of the North London derby. And as I say, I think it's a derby right now that is right up there among the best in the country.
Mm-mm. It's been a while since I've managed to witness a Tyne Wear derby up here, and like I said at the start, that it's been an even longer time since I managed to celebrate one. Sunderland, I think every time we came up against Sunderland in recent years, and I think it was Lee Catmull that said this, that their overall aim at the start of the season, and it was mentioned from the off, is that Newcastle is the biggest game of the season. And I think when Newcastle went into the games against Sunderland, yes, it's a huge game. Of course it is. But it wasn't the be-all and end-all for us. Obviously, we still had games to win there. And that showed in some of the performances. So I've got really bad recent memories of derbies. But I think my most favourite one, and you'll probably know straight away, is the Demolition Derby. So Halloween, Newcastle went and absolutely annihilated Sunderland 5-1. Andy Carroll had an absolute blinder of a game, and to go and beat your local rivals in that manner is something else, and to be in the ground when that happens as well, the euphoric attitude and everything, and the release of stress that's been built up for days and weeks. And I'm from a place which is right in the middle of Newcastle and Sunderland. I'm from a coastal town called South Shields, so my friends are split down the middle. So going into school, going into work the day after a derby, it can be the best day of your life, or it could easily be the worst day of your life. So yeah, it was a lot of bad memories, but I think if we look at it overall, I think Newcastle always had a bit of the rub of the green with this one, and we've always had the better results. But yeah, I think that Demolition Derby has to be my favourite. What about you, Nicky?
It's a difficult one for me because although being in London, our rivals are not in the Premier League, and they never have been. It's Millwall. So who would I class as our rivals? We're definitely not, rivals with Arsenal. With So the only two I can think of is Chelsea and Tottenham that are the closest to being, a fierce derby. And that's just because of the hatred that we hold for them and they hold for us. So the Tottenham one, the memorable one for me, I mean, I'm going back some years now, but we was battling relegation in about 1995, I think. And we beat them 4-3 at Upton Park. When we was more or less on our arse in the, everyone was thinking we was in the Championship. And we signed Hartson and Kitson, and they had storming games. It was a windy night. That's the most memorable. But modern era, in the last I suppose in the last 10 years, we went to White Hart Lane when, again, we were bad and we didn't have a centre forward, and we tore them to pieces 3-0, and Ravel Morrison run them ragged. Ravel Morrison probably had 5 good games for us, and that was one of the best performances I've ever seen from a young man. Gone on to do absolutely nothing in his career, but he absolutely tore them to pieces. I mean, and they had some really, really good players in, and he ran them ragged. So yeah, I would say that. But there's been a few against Tottenham, to be fair. We seem to really stick a knife in when it hurts them the most. I remember being the first team to beat them at their stadium, at their new stadium. They was going unbeaten. They was in a Champions League final, and we rocked up there and smashed them 1-0. And I mean, we battered them around the park that day. But yeah, just because our rivals ain't in the Premier League, I'm afraid. So I'll have to say that one of them.
It feels nice though, doesn't it, to say that your rivals aren't in the Premier League?
I'd rather they were, to be honest.
Oh, really?
I'd rather they were, because it gives you something, some real. You look forward to them games. You do look forward to them games. Like any. I know that. Look, your rivals are not coming to the Premier League for a long while, long while, if they ever do. You miss them. We had a couple of years in the Championship with them. I miss them. I do miss them games. I miss the, going to work the next day and bantering everyone. It's with teams that are not really around you. We do get that with Tottenham and Chelsea to a certain extent, but Millwall, West Ham, we're very close in terms of location.
I'm the complete opposite to that, Nicky. And I think, like I said, it's probably because of the recent memories and having the backlash of losing 6 derbies in a row. I don't think I could have dealt with another one. So I think that's why I would rather see that club absolutely fall to bits rather than get anywhere near the Premier League. I really would. Because the nerves that you have going into derby day is crazy. I can't sleep for days. I have about 4 nervous poos in the morning before the kick-off.
Yeah, I know it's not nice losing them, but it's sweeter than anything when you win them.
Yeah, I agree to that extent. But boys, that wraps it up for the first episode of the new season on Fanzone here. If you have enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it, even subscribe to the channel as well. You'll get a lot more things. If you agree with anything we said, if you disagree, drop it in the comments. If you want to have a bit of a rant about Chelsea, just like Nicky as well, feel free to do so in the comments as well. But boys, we'll start with you, Nicky. Do you want to tell everybody where they can find you?
Yeah, you find us on West Ham Fan TV across everything, mate.
Great. And over to you, Harry. Where can people find your work?
Yep, you can find me on the Chronicles of a Gooner Arsenal podcast, or you can find me on Twitter at Harry Simi.
Perfect. I can find myself and the rest of the guys, all things Newcastle United, on the Guy Get Shots YouTube channel and podcast. Boys, it's been a pleasure, and good luck for the rest of the season, and we'll see you next time.